Today I'd like to talk about what weapons a competitive Demoman has available, why some choices may be preferable to others, and what trade-offs are associated with each weapon. This is going to be quite exhaustive, so I've included chapters to help navigate or skip around if you're looking for something specific. With all that being said, let's get right into Demoman's primaries. When it comes to Demoman's grenade launchers, they all strive to serve as a strong combo tool with stickies, a spam option when traps are up, and a closer ranged option for situations when a sticky bomb fuse time is too long. Some do these better than others, but no weapon is the best at all three. Starting off with the stock grenade launcher. Most stock weapons don't really boast anything special about them, but serve as a reliable option. While this is true to some degree with the stock grenade launcher, this weapon is actually the only viable primary for Demoman which has a full explosion radius. This means that stock grenades do more splash damage against group players, and stock rollers can do more damage. But stock's longer fuse time and unpredictable rollers counterbalances this factor somewhat. This does come with an upside though, as the longer fuse time gives stock pipes a longer effective range. The Iron Bomber has been the favorite grenade launcher of most Demomen for years, and for good reason. The combination of minimally rolling grenades with a shorter fuse time means that even missed shots will still get roller chip damage pretty reliably. Also, the predictability of the rollers mean that they can become an actual tool to either clear enemy stickies or explosive jump without having to detonate your sticky traps. The downsides of the Iron Bomber are the decreased explosion radius, meaning less splash damage on direct hits and generally less roller damage, and a shorter effective range because of a decreased fuse time. In summary, stock and the Iron Bomber function very similarly, with stock having usually worse rollers for slightly better long-range spam. Moving on to the Loch-n-Load. Having played with this a lot recently, I fully think it deserves a seat at the table with the main two grenade launchers already covered here. The Loch-n-Load on paper is quite weak, sacrificing an entire grenade slot, explosion radius, and any type of rollers just for more building damage and a faster projectile. Without a doubt, these are very heavy downsides, but the projectile speed is an unexpectedly huge benefit. Not only does this make the Loch-n-Load the longest range grenade launcher Demoman can use, but also makes the weapon harder to dodge at close and mid ranges, with a faster projectile that is difficult to react to. What actually makes these upsides good, however, is how they fit into the metagame in general. Being able to be as or more effective from more passive positioning is an extremely valuable tool for as important a class as Demo. And while the Loch-n-Load is outperformed in scrappy team fights, when it comes to point transitions and stalemates, it really shines. The Bootlegger and Booties completely forego having a primary in favor of 25 health. Years ago they provided a passive move speed bonus as well, and were used sometimes as a result. Nowadays, that is no longer present, and there's really not any reason to use them anymore, since the downside is just too great. The loose cannon really only serves one niche purpose. While the weapon's feedback is satisfying, this grenade launcher has the shortest range of any grenade launcher, and the fuse mechanic hurts more than it helps. That being said, the unique knockback mechanic can be useful in denying uber ad pushes into your own last on certain maps like Gully Wash. So if you want to go for a high-risk, high-reward play on disad, then you can switch to the loose cannon and switch off afterwards. In conclusion, the Iron Bomber is the most consistent primary Demo has, and for that reason it is the go-to for most players, and what I'd recommend for new players as well. Stock is not far behind the Iron Bomber, and a great option if you prefer its trade-offs over the Iron Bombers. Lastly, I think the Loch-n-Load is a completely viable option, but it plays much differently, and you have to be prudent with it to account for its weaknesses. Moving on now to secondaries. The Stickybomb Launcher is the best damage-dealing weapon in the game, and gives versatility and utility that other classes would kill for. When describing what the role of a Demoman is in sixes, you're basically describing what the Stickybomb Launcher can do. Other sticky launchers will be talked about and how they measure up to stock. Also, no shield will be talked about because the trade-off of giving up stickies entirely is catastrophic, and any success you have will be despite that decision, not because of it. The stock Stickybomb Launcher is everything that I've just described. An arsenal of 8 sticky bombs that can all be charged, placed, or detonated wherever and whenever the demo pleases makes this the defining weapon of the class. It's hard to sing the praises of the stock Stickybomb Launcher in specific terms, because to some degree, the Demoman as a class just is the Stickybomb Launcher. The Quickiebomb Launcher is the only other semi-viable secondary Demoman has. With a faster charge time and slightly improved damage on charged stickies, the Quickiebomb Launcher seems like a powerful single-det damage dealer in team fights. But then you realize you can only have 4 stickies loaded at a time. And in practice, while you might get better early burst damage in team fights than stock, once you spend those 4, you fall behind very quickly. While quickies vary from slightly better to just worse in team fights, when it comes to defending or even holding anything, it really falls short. Getting up traps and holding doors is much slower and less effective with the Quickiebomb Launcher. That being said, this weapon's stickies have an ability to delete enemy sticky bombs completely, which, aside from just pissing off enemy demos, does have actual utility in clearing traps or easily clearing a last point for a cap-focused strategy in an ad push. Like the loose cannon, the Scottish Resistance really only has utility in a disad last hold before switching off. The greatly increased arm time makes Scottish Resistance stickies almost unusable in team fights, and for that reason it is only ever used in last holds where you have a surplus of time to set up traps. Being able to detonate particular traps at a time makes it useful to hold a trap on the last point while freeing yourself up to det other traps on pushing players, and the 14 sticky capacity is a nice bonus to this effect. Overall, the Scottish Resistance is a less risky but less usable gimmick disad option since it requires a lot of time to set up, which isn't often the situation. Just like the shields, the Sticky Jumper gives up any damage potential of the Stickybomb Launcher and is not worth using. Unlike the shields, the Sticky Jumper can provide a use in extremely specific circumstances. When you're in an overtime situation and absolutely cannot make it to the objective in time without this weapon, then you can use it to travel faster than any other weapon allows you to. Also, while obviously not recommended, if you love to feed, then this lets you do it more effectively. In conclusion, there is very little reason to switch off of the stock Stickybomb Launcher. If you are in the rare circumstances where you have time for Scottish Resistance, then it can give you some marginal benefit, but in general, you will not be missing out on much if you only use stock and focus your efforts on improving with it. Demo's melee weapons are pretty underwhelming and aren't as impactful as those of Scout or Soldier. In general, they provide some small utility with some small drawback, with varying effectivenesses in combat. The stock model is just a stock melee, no special bonuses or downsides. That being said, one-handed weapons are drawn faster than Demo's two-handed swords, which have more range. This makes the bottle much more effective in the rare combat situations you'll want to use melee as Demo. Those situations being scrappy post-fights, where a player is trying to either make you take self-damage from explosions, or crosses into your melee range for just a moment. In both of these times, having a faster draw speed is actually quite important. That being said, stock is not the only one-handed melee, and it's just a statless choice, with some fun reskins. The Half-Zatoichi is one of the more common melee choices for Demomen, because of its downside actually. Taking damage on Sheath is used to build Ubers, which is really only useful on disad last holds, where both scouts are off-classing. If you're using the Iron Bomber, you also have the option to build Uber with rollers as well. The true downside of the Zatoichi is that it is a two-handed sword, meaning it draws much slower than other melees, and isn't really useful in most of Demo's melee situations. The health on kill does help, and can lead to funny chain kills, but more often than not it's less impactful in combat. The Pain Train is a lot like stock, only it has one minor upside and one minor downside. For the benefit of a 2x capture rate, you take 10% more damage from bullets. The 2x capture rate is not that huge, because as a Demo you're very rarely capping points, but teams do stack caps to try to deny forward spawns somewhat often in game, so it's not useless. The bullet damage vulnerability sounds worse on paper than it is in practice. While the last thing a Demo wants is to give an enemy scout the edge, the maximum possible damage extra you would possibly take is 26, and that's from a full buff taking only scattergun or pistol damage. In an actual game setting, you're more likely to be taking some explosive splash damage from rockets and stickies, so we're looking more at the 5 to 18 extra damage range. If you find yourself living within these margins in scout fights specifically, then the pain train will let you die more often, but in my opinion, it's pretty similar to stock with both weak upsides and downsides. The Scotsman Skullcutter is the other two-handed weapon that gets used, but very rarely. The extra damage is okay, but generally not worth the draw speed, and if you're choosing a two-handed melee, then you may as well pick the Zatoichi anyway. This applies to all the other swords not mentioned. They either don't provide a real upside to justify slotting, or come with a huge downside on a weapon that just won't be used much. The Ullapool Caber is the honorary gimmick utility weapon of the category. With a draw speed so slow that the swords get put to shame, you won't be using this thing in combat without preempting the draw well in advance, and good luck closing the distance with Demoman's running speed. What does make the Caber unique is the first hit explosion, which can be used in conjunction with a ramp slide to do a pseudo rocket jump. Needless to say, this is not a reliable strategy and will likely get you killed, but it is pretty unique and other melees can't do this. In conclusion, if you had to leave on a melee weapon and ignore the slot, then it should be the Half-Zatoichi. The katana gives the most straightforward benefit, with only the minor downside of being less useful for the rare demo melee combat situations. If you don't need the Zatoichi to build Uber on last for whatever reason, then you're freed up to use stock for something simple, or pain train if you find yourself stacking cap often or don't have too much trouble with the enemy's scouts. All in all though, the melee choice is the least impactful for Demoman. That covers pretty much everything, from metagame defining to nearly useless. I tried to include every weapon that ever gets used in a serious setting. Hopefully, this can serve as a resource for newer Demomen to better understand why the Iron Bomber, Stickybomb Launcher, and Half-Zatoichi is the meta loadout, why you might choose to switch it up, and what other options offer. If not, then maybe it was just entertaining to watch someone explain why a player might equip the Scottish Resistance in a competitive match. Either way, hope you all enjoyed. Have a good one.